In this video, I'm going to attempt to explain Google Sheets in about 10 minutes or less. There are two main ways that you can start a Google Sheet. You can go to your Google Drive and you can click the blue New tab, and then you can select Google Sheets and the arrow right here, and you can choose to start from a blank spreadsheet or from a template. Similarly, you can go to sheets.google.com, which will actually reroute you to docs.google.com/spreadsheets, but you will end up here where you can start from a template or you can start from a blank spreadsheet. You will notice that here, if you've ever previously created any spreadsheets, you will see all the spreadsheets you have created. I already have a spreadsheet pre-created, and that's what I'm going to use for this video. You can see that once my spreadsheet is open, it has a title right here. If I want to change that title, I can click in the blue box, and actually it's gray until I click in it, then it becomes blue, and I can rename that. So let's say I want to call this Intro to G Suite for Education, because this is part of a larger course for Intro to G Suite for Education. And I then can left click off of that, and I have renamed my spreadsheet. Very easy to rename a spreadsheet. You also may have multiple tabs. This only has one tab. This has one sheet in it. So if I want to add a new sheet, I can click Add a New Sheet here. And notice it renames it as Sheet 11. If I click the drop down arrow, I can rename that. Let's say I want to call it Example for Video. And I now have a new sheet right there. And notice how this one has a purple line. If I click the down arrow right there, if I left click the down arrow, I can go to change color, and if I want this one to be a dark gray, I can select that dark gray, and now I have two sheets, and I can toggle back and forth between those two sheets at any time. If I want to reorder them, I can left click and drag and hold one of them down, and if I want to move it back, I can left click and drag and drop it there as well. So I'm going to do some things in the student score sheet, and I'm going to do something in the example for video sheet. Before I start and I go any further, I should explain a few basic things about a spreadsheet. One of them is that these are columns. So C is a column, D is a column, E is a column. 1 is a row, 2 is a row, 3 is a row. And the functioning units that we see here, these outlined rectangles, are what are called cells. So this is cell B2, this is cell A2, because this one is where column B and row 2 meet. So if I refer to a cell, I'm referring to this individualized box right here. If I refer to a column, I'm referring to this. And if I refer to a row, I'm referring to a row number. So columns always have letter titles and rows always have numbers. That's also another easy way to remember. You just start putting numbers in. One of the neat things about a spreadsheet that you will notice is that the computer will start to recognize your pattern. So if I left click and hold down, that allows me to select a range of cells. So I just left click and dragged and held down there, and then I get this blue square in the corner, and my cursor turns into a crosshair. I can drag that, and it will automatically recognize my pattern, and it will start to create numbers for me. So there, it went 1 through 32. So let's say that I wanted to count by tens, and I want to do the same thing. The computer will again recognize the same pattern and will automatically input that information. So if I need to create labels from 1 to 150 for a grade level, I don't need to type in 1 through 150. I can type to 4 or 5 and then use my autofill to auto-populate those cells. And again, that allows you to select a range of cells and auto-populate. You may find that you want to change a row or a column size. Very easy to do. A couple of different ways. You can move the mouse until you get the double-sided arrow, and this is true for rows or columns, and then you can manually drag that and make it larger or make it taller or shorter or narrow, as the case may be. You can also left click on any row or column, and then you can right click and you go to Resize Column or Resize Row, as the case may be, and enter the information that you would like to have as the size of that cell. Notice the default is 100. I made it 148. Let's just say I want to make it 125. I can do that. And again, same process for a row. Left click, then right click, then go to row height and go to custom, and you can make it whatever you would like. So easy to change row and column heights and widths. And you can do multiples by left clicking and dragging across multiple rows or columns, and then right clicking and then resizing columns C through G. So very easy to resize multiple rows or multiple columns. You can also delete rows or columns. So let's say that I want to delete this row. I can just left click on the top of the column, and then I can right click and I can click on delete column. Very easy to delete a column. Notice column B is still there because all the information just shifts to the left. I don't need to rename the column or anything like that. It just automatically is deleted when I delete the information that is in that column. And I can do the same thing with a row. If I wanted to delete a row, I could left click on that row and then delete the row. Now notice obviously I'm missing 2, so that could cause somewhat of a problem, so I'm going to undo that. by doing Control Z, and I can also Control Z on my keyboard. I can also hit undo right here. So that allows you to delete a row or column. You can also insert a row or column. So let's say that I wanted a column to the left of my information right here. I'm going to click on column A, left click, and then I'm going to right click, and then I am going to choose insert one to the left, and that will insert a column to the left. And let's say I want a row above row 1. I can left click on column 1, and then left click on row 1, and then right click, and I can go insert one above. So now I have a column to the left of my data, and I have a row above where my data starts. So very easy to add or delete columns or rows. You can also move a column or a row. So let's say that after I've created this, I do in fact want 1 through 38, I think it was, 32, to be over here. I can left click on the top of that column in the title area of B, and I can drag that over here and I can drop it. Notice that dark gray bar shows me where it's going to drop, so I'm going to drop it there, and now that is in fact back on the left side. So very easy to move rows or columns using that same technique. Text wrapping is a very nice feature. So let's say that I am going to give this a very extended title. If I could type, it would be much easier. Okay, so notice that the information I have placed in cell A1 is now bleeding into cell B1, and that's okay for right now, but I really wouldn't want to leave it that way. So what I would want to do is enable something called text wrapping, and I do that by choosing the cell that is bleeding over, or where the information starts from, not the one it bleeds into, but where it starts from. And I go to Format, not to Data, but to Format, and I go to Text Wrapping, and I go to, right now, notice Overflow is selected. I will go to Wrap, and so that will wrap the information into one cell, so it's contained within that cell where I originally had typed the information. You can do a couple of different things in terms of aligning the cell. So you can align it to the center, and you can align it to the right. So you have a couple of options there. You don't have to wrap the cell, by the way, to do that. It made it sound like I did in the previous comment. You can do that for anything. So if I want this to be in the middle, say, I could select that. If I want the entire column to be in the middle, I can select the entire column and then choose the middle alignment. Another option would be if I want to have a lengthy title right here. I can also do what is called merge these two cells. So if I left click and I drag, and I have this option right here to merge cells, it will merge those two cells into one cell. So now this is one functioning cell. So D1, E1 have been merged together to create one cell. So that's a very basic way as well to manage your titles and possibly other things on your spreadsheets. You can change the color and size and type of cells as well. So let's say I want this to be a blue font, and I want it to be a size 14, and I want it to be a Comic Sans. I can do that. And let's say that I want the same features for this cell, except for that I want it to be contained within a yellow background. So I have that option right there. Now notice you will see that the information is still going to run out of that cell because I didn't wrap the text, I just merged it, so it's going to stay with the two lengths that are there. So if I wanted to format that again and make sure that my cells are wrapped, I would go back and need to choose that option. Notice how the information here in this cell is all at the bottom. If I click this arrow right here, I can choose to align that in the middle. I can choose to align it at the bottom as it was, or at the top. So if I want that cell to be in the middle and the middle here, I can do that. Very easy to change those sort of style features with Google Sheets. You can also change the borders of your cells. So let's say I want this cell to have an outside border. If I click the down arrow right here, I can choose that I want it to have an outside border. I want that border to be black, and I want it to be a very thick black line. I now have that border right there. And let's say on this, because I have a title of data there, I click a down arrow. I want this to be the line to be only on the bottom to separate the title from the data, and I want that to be a double bar line, and I want that double bar line to be purple. I now have a double bar purple line right there. So I can manipulate the borders of a cell very easily by using the border command that is shown right here. Another option that you have, I'm going to jump back over to the data that I already have for this, and that is the ability to freeze a cell or to unfreeze a cell. Notice right now I have about 20 students and their scores here for quizzes 1 through 5, and I also have their grades listed here in terms of what year they are in school. And let's say that I had to put in 20 more students. I would have to constantly scroll back up here to the top and look and see, okay, quiz 1, what was their score? If you go to view and you go to freeze, you can freeze the first row at the top. So now when I scroll down, notice how the titles for each one remain right there, and I can see that Donetta has scored a 69 on quiz 2. You can also freeze any column as well. So I'm going to freeze column 1. So now the same thing, once I get into adding some more information for these students, I can scroll to my right and I can find out, the maximum score for Anne or Carl, and very easily line that up. If you should choose that you do not want a sheet, so let's say that I no longer want this sheet over here, I can left click right there and I can go to delete. And once I do that, I am going to get a warning, and that's very important that I read that warning, because if I delete something that's in that sheet, I'm never getting it back. So I'm okay with deleting that because I don't need it anymore, so I'm going to hit OK. A very nice feature is the ability to protect a sheet or protect aspects of a sheet. So let's say that I want to distribute this information to all of my peers in a grade level, and I want them to be able to view this, but I don't want them to be able to edit any of this information from A1 through G21. I can highlight that information again by left clicking and dragging, and then I can go to tools and go to protect sheet, and I have my range selected here. I can set a permission, and I can restrict this so that only I will be able to edit this information. So even if I share this document with someone else, only I will be able to edit the information that is in that area right there. I can change it so that it is customized. So let's say I'm going to share this with 10 people at a grade level, but I only want 2 of us to be able to edit that. I can choose the editors right here, and I can choose done. If I want to get rid of that, I can just left click on that and then delete. And yes, I do want to remove those permissions. If the protected sheets in range is not showing for some reason, and it probably will not be at various times. So if you're just on a cell over here, you can always go to data, and then you can go to protected sheets and ranges, and you can choose the range and the criteria that you would like to remove, and it's very simple to do that by clicking remove. So if I want to remove those criteria, I can do that. So a very simple way to remove the protection there as well. If you want to duplicate a sheet, that is easy to do as well. So let's say, for example, that I want to duplicate this so that I have a second period class that I want to enter the information for. I click the down arrow here and I go to duplicate. It's going to create another sheet called copy of student scores. If I left click that, I can rename that, and I can call that second period. And now I have the same information, but I could easily clear out the names and put in the names for my second period students and jump back over to the original one here. I can use the sort feature, and so if I want to sort all of these students and their quiz scores together, I'm going to left click and drag and select that range, and then I'm going to go to data and I'm going to go to sort range. Now I did select the first row, so I need to select that the data has a header row, and I'm going to sort by their grade level first, A to Z, and then I am going to sort by their name. So it should put all the 6th grade students at the top in the alphabetical, and then all 7th grade students in alphabetical, and then all the 8th grade students in alphabetical. So I hit sort, and notice there's all the 6th grade students, all the 7th grade students, all the 8th grade students. A lot of times when people do this, they're uncertain of whether the scores went with the student. So I noticed that Alina had a 99. So if I undo that sort and I find Alina, then I noticed that her score was in fact correct. So I can redo that sort and know that is correct. Very important though that you select the entire range that you want to sort. Another nice feature is the ability to add a filter. So I'm going to go to data, I'm going to turn on the filter for this column, column B. So if I click the down arrow here, I can just look at the students who are in 7th grade by selecting those options. And notice the filter appears right here, and that's how I know that. So I can go back and I can go select all, and all the students will reappear. And if I wanted to filter that out again, I just hit the filter button right there and choose the criteria that I want. And to turn that off, I can go to data and I can go to turn off filter. So I can turn the filter on for any column that I would like. Very easy to turn that on or off. I want to cover the formulas right now. These are the 5 most basic formulas. So they are sum, average, count, minimum, and maximum. So the sum is going to sum all the quiz scores. The average is going to give me an average of the quiz scores. The count is going to tell me how many quiz scores there are. The minimum is going to tell me the minimum score, and the maximum is going to tell me the maximum score, obviously. These are all done through the formulas, and if you do not have the Sigma button here, as I don't, because perhaps you're zoomed in. You may need to go to More to find that. So if I click the down arrow next to Sigma and I go to Sum, it's going to ask me the sum of which cells. So I want the sum of cells B2 through G2, and I'm going to hit enter, and it will give me the sum of those cells. I'm going to do the same thing for average. Again, the average of what cells? The cells B2 to G2, and I'm going to hit enter. Notice it has a lot of decimal places there. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So the next option, again, going back to the Sigma, I am going to go to count, and the count is going to give me the number of quizzes that the person has taken. So that's going to give me the count of C2 to G2 again, and I'm going to do that by hitting enter. And the minimum, I'm going to, again, the minimum of what? And I'm going to need to make sure that I get B2 through G2, sorry, C2 through G2. If I get B2, it's going to give me the grade, which I don't want. And then the maximum is, of course, going to give me the maximum. It's a Sigma again, and I am going to choose maximum, and I'm going to go C2 through G2. Now I need to go back and make sure that I didn't actually grab B in some of those cells. Notice I did. I left click. If I need to change that, I don't want B. I don't want to start at C because I don't want the grade level to be in there. That's going to change their average greatly. And the same thing for the sum. I don't want B to be in that formula because I want only starting at quiz 1. I don't want their grade to be part of the sum or the average. So now I have the sum, the average, the count, the minimum, and the maximum for Alina. And let's say that I want to have those for all students. Very simple. I can select one column, and then I can drag down, and this will automatically fill that column with everyone's sum. And I can do the same thing for average, and I can do the same thing for count, or I can select all of these cells, grab the formula from all 4 cells, and bring it down. Again, you would want to make sure that your formula is correct in that first row before you drag it down to all of the other students. If not, you're going to have to redo all of that. And that is a basic overview of some of the simple operations for using Google Sheets and using it to create some basic spreadsheets and enter some essential data that you will probably find useful for your classroom. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, good luck creating your spreadsheet.